Hey everyone, I'm Monique and I'm excited to welcome you to today's LinkedIn Live session, Unlock Insights with Microsoft Fabric AI. I'm here on behalf of Pronix Inc. and we're proud to be hosting this conversation in collaboration with Microsoft. We're really excited you're here because the way we work with data is changing fast, and Microsoft Fabric AI is right at the center of that shift. In this session, we're going to show you how Fabric is bringing everything together, analytics, intelligence, and automation into one powerful unified platform. Whether you're trying to simplify messy data pipelines, speed up decision making, or just make sense of numbers in real time, Fabric AI is helping teams do that faster and smarter. And it's not just about speed. This platform is built with scalability, governance, and seamless integration in mind. So it grows with your business, it keeps your data clean, secure, and connected. If you don't have the chat or comment area opened up, please go ahead and do so now. Just look down below if you're on your phone or on the right-hand side if you're viewing us on your desktop for an area to leave your comments. This is where we'll be asking you questions and feedback. We truly want this to be a two-way street where it's truly interactive during the time we spend together during this session. And please feel free to share any ideas or questions that may pop up as we go through this session. In fact, let us know right now, where are you joining us from? As you all are sharing that with us, I would like to share a little bit about myself and who we are. So as mentioned before, I'm Monique here on behalf of Pronix Inc. And before we dive deeper, I just want to share a quick bit about Pronix. So we work with organizations that are ready to modernize how they manage data and bring AI into their day-to-day operations, whether it's through tools like Microsoft Fabric AI or broader data strategy consulting. Our goal is to help businesses move faster, work smarter, and actually use their data to make better decisions. Now, our partnership with Microsoft lets us bring cutting edge solutions to the table, solutions that not only deliver real insights, but also keep things secure, scalable, and compliant across the enterprise. Bottom line, we help you unlock the real value of your data without all of that chaos. Now, before we dive in, I'm excited to introduce the incredible experts joining us from today's conversation. First up, we have Raj. Raj, welcome. Please let us know a little bit about yourself.
Yep. Thanks, Monique and Pronix for this opportunity. As I said, I'm Raj Gadam, an engineering and operations leader in medical devices, especially in the lab automation and manufacturing automation area. I help biotech and diagnostic companies and clinical laboratories to automate their processes and data pipelines. Like any automation, in fact, operations needs a stronger data backbone and decision-making process. I lived through the data pain, and I'm here to happily discuss about the situations and probably the outcomes.
All right, thank you so much, Raj. Next, we have Tom. Tom, how are you? Please let us know about yourself.
Hey, Monique, thanks for having me today. My name's Tom Overton with Automation Information Consulting. I've been doing data on Microsoft platforms for about 30 years. Starting in the mid-90s, we took Lotus 123 to Excel and Word mail merge and built embedded queries to SQL Server in the early 2000s and used Access database reporting tools off of those things. So bringing data together in a way that we could surface that intelligence to the business has been a passion of mine for a long time, and I'm glad to be here today.
All right, thank you so much, Tom. And last but not the very least, we have Gary. Hey, Gary, let's hear a little bit about you.
Yeah, hi Monique, how you doing? Thanks for inviting me today. My name is Gary Sanes. I'm the founder of Fabric Future Innovators. It's a company I formed last year. And basically, my mission with the company is to drive innovation and deliver desired business outcomes with forward thinking, a commitment to building successful data-driven futures for clients, and specializing, obviously, by the name, Fabric Future Innovators, specializing in Microsoft Fabric. I have the rare experience of working with Microsoft Fabric for over 4 years, which is highly unusual since the product was only launched in November of 23. So it's a little over a year and a half old. I've got that experience through a special program Microsoft calls their Enterprise Voice. When I was working at AstraZeneca Pharmaceuticals, I was there a member of that board, and there was only about 60 other people from other enterprise companies that were working on that program. So I got to know the design goals of Fabric. I got to feed in, along with other customers, a lot of requirements that enterprises have for data and AI and analytics. I've got to establish good relationships with Microsoft, the executives, product team, customer advisory team, and others. And I look to sort of drive a lot of core services in the company, like strategy, Fabric adoption, center of excellence, data ops and delivery of Fabric, and technology architecture, as well as governance. Glad to be here today.
All right. So thank you all for being here. We're excited to have you join us for this conversation. Now let's get into what we're really here to talk about. So how Microsoft Fabric AI is completely changing the way teams work with data. So we're seeing this shift from scattered tools and disconnected systems to one unified platform that brings together analytics, automation, AI, and governance, all in real time. And so this first question is for you, Raj and Tom. How can businesses leverage Microsoft Fabric AI to transform their data pipelines and accelerate insights? Raj, you can go first.
Yeah, it's a great place to start because it really where most organizations feel the pain. As an operations leader, I've felt this pain myself. If you look into how data pipelines work today in many companies, they're often stitched together using multiple tools, one for ingestion, data ingestion, another for transformation, maybe something else for modeling, and then separate reporting platforms on top of them. And at each step, you need data engineers, BI teams, data scientists, and a handoff from one process to another process introduces delays and complexities. Many times, the insight is actually by the time it reaches the business leader, the information or it get delayed, and it ultimately delays the decision-making process. This is exactly the bottleneck where Microsoft Fabric AI is designed to remove. It brings the entire data lifecycle into single intelligent platform. With One Lake as a unified data foundation and Microsoft Copilot as a AI assistant layer, you can go from raw data to decision-making dashboards in a very quick time. The impact is the speed with the precision, I'd say. Instead of teams waiting for reports for weeks long, we can act on real-time data and near real-time analysis, and it can truly transform the organization.
All right. Thank you so much, Raj. And Tom?
Good points, Raj. I would add to that when we start building silos, which is typically what you see in organizations, folks are trying to get a batch operation from yesterday that you may run into their system this morning. So 24 to 48 hours behind is usually about as close as they can get. And when people speak of real time, it certainly isn't real time as we would see RTI and Fabric, where we have opportunities to use data activators, program reflexes against those, look for things that maybe have lagged behind real time, and notify somebody that these pipelines are not current, and if so, what timestamp they were last run. So the ETL, whether you like to write it in T-SQL as I do as an old data guy, or you want to use something in Python in a notebook, all these are running, as Raj mentioned, on One Lake, which underpins all of Fabric. So that One Lake architecture lets us have Delta Parquet files accessible in very near real time for almost any of the sources, whether those are mirrored for data, ETL from a source you need to actually move data for, or shortcuts to S3 buckets or Google Cloud Storage or ADLS Gen 2. All these things become available inside of Fabric for all these teams. And if I get a second to plug my website, the banner at the top says unify your data. I've seen that out there a little bit. Unifying your data is the actual goal to me of what One Lake brings to your enterprise. One source of truth that everyone can govern and access from there, where security's happy, the business is happy, because to Raj's point, 48 hours or 48 days, when somebody builds a pipeline, puts it in another database, gets it together, and then you realize you're missing something, you've probably forgotten why you wanted it in the first place.
Thank you. Thank you to you both for sharing your insights. Now, Tom, let's continue with you. What role does AI play in enhancing decision-making within Microsoft Fabric?
Well, I think we need to take a step back and understand what we need first. So before we have the ability to use AI, rather, in my opinion, we need that one source of truth. We need to unify that data, and we need to increase data quality as near 100% as we can get. Otherwise, we have duplicate records, we have sparsely populated tables, things that don't join together. And people assume that because this mirror or ETL is done, now we're ready for AI, when really we need to focus on getting subject matter experts in the loop at every juncture so that we get good, clean data before we start talking about what we're going to do with an AI initiative. I think absent that, you're going to find AI disappointing and just flat wrong.
Thank you for sharing that, Tom, because we have been doing these video panel podcasts, if you will, or live streams for quite some time. And in other panels, we've kind of discussed that, how like data, first off, needs to be cleaned. As we all know, especially in an enterprise level, it could be all over the place. It can be unorganized, it could be duplicate, all kind of things, And so, however, I think a lot of people tend to mistake or think AI is this huge savior that's going to come in and prevent people from having to go through that arduous process of having to clean, because you still need to do that. And then, like you said, they're going to be highly upset and disappointed if they just throw AI on there like a Band-Aid or something and thinking like it's going to take over and fix everything. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Back to you, Raj and Tom. So how does Microsoft Fabric AI empower business users and data scientists through low code or no code tools? Because vibe coding, that's also a trending thing that's happening out there for those who are in the AI bubble. So I would love to hear your thoughts from both of you. Raj, you can go first.
Yeah, I'd say for years, the data has been gathered, or data processing is a technical skill. Okay, if you aren't a data engineer or a data scientist, you are mostly waiting. I experienced it first off my hand as an operations leader. You are waiting on your data scientists or data engineers to gather the data and process it for you. And when you really needed the data, it's not relevant anymore. All right, it really creates bottlenecks, silos, and delays. Fabric exactly removes these barriers. With low code or no code interfaces, business users can explore data, set up data sets, and even build little pipelines or predictive models without writing a single line of code. You have Copilot integrated, which acts as a translator between the business questions and technical execution. For example, a supply chain leader can ask, if I have 10 vendors that are supplying me, then which supplier may cause the delay in my next manufacturing process in next month or so. So you get these answers immediately. When you're an operations leader, you want to look at the data. You usually put a ticket to give you that data, massage data, so you can actually generate a report out of it and to look at it. The fabric exactly solves these complexities. So you can actually write a very LLM integrated Copilot. So you can write your queries and you can get the data or generate a report on the fly.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Raj. Tom?
I think the low code opportunities now are enormous out there for business users as well as data scientists. So if you backed up to when Gary was talking about enterprise voice meetings, and we heard about Project Trident a year and a half before anybody ever heard of Fabric, getting to work on that, I'll describe what I was doing and how it's better now. We would take Power BI, we would see that in a Synapse workspace. We would build 3 dedicated SQL servers, one to represent our SQL data, our DB2 data, and our Oracle data. We would pull those 50 tables, 100 tables, let's say, through basically what looked like Power BI interfaces. So if we fast forward a little bit on that aspect of it, now we could use copy tools, we could use Gen 2 data flows inside of Fabric, and we could even check those into CI/CD. So instead of me doing it on my laptop and being the only person that understood the entire environment for a year and a half or 2 years, and quite honestly, if somebody broke something, it was me, but it wasn't always easy to fix. And now somebody in a Fabric trial in 60 days could go get all those data sources I described, have a business user that was a SME go select 50 tables, 100 tables, and run that, go to lunch. And unless this was just incredibly massive data, in an hour or two, he would have data that he could play with in Fabric. The same team could report to the data scientist they were done. He opens up a notebook and gets a data wrangler tool and asks Copilot to help connect to this database, or the business user says, I want to check in this code and put this data in play. And now the data scientist is using it. Instead of making a copy in his own silo, he's actually going to where the folks that started this morning that just went to lunch have now produced data in one lake that he can access with APIs, with notebooks, with SQL queries. Again, one source of truth in one lake. That efficiency alone between those two teams, and all of it could be done largely with low code and a little bit of Python in a notebook. And we've actually got a potential for having an answer to something, to Raj's point, maybe today or this week instead of a month from now.
Mhm. Yeah, I thank you, Raj, and thank you, Tom, for one, kind of giving us more context as far as like the timeline and like before, what would happen before, and then after, once you start integrating Fabric AI. So I appreciate you both for kind of giving us some scenarios and breaking that down. So Gary, let's bring you into the conversation, my friend. What are the benefits of a unified platform like Microsoft Fabric AI for data engineering, data science, and business intelligence?
Yeah, the biggest benefit I see is that it eliminates these silos of tools that traditionally exist between those disciplines, data engineering and data science and business intelligence. Instead of managing all these separate tools, which is quite an effort for IT organizations today, they have different transformation. They have different tools for modeling, and then they probably have multiple BI tools. I know a lot of organizations that I've worked for have more than one. So Fabric brings all that together in one software as a service environment with a shared security model. I know it took them a little while to get to that point. That was one of the big conversations we had during the early days of design. You have that one model and the governance framework around it, and all storing everything in a single infrastructure, which is one lake. So for data engineers, that means a lot less time spent managing that infrastructure. There's a lot of other platforms out there that you do spend a great deal of time with that, and even trying to automate it with infrastructure as a service and tools and utilities. But you don't need to do that with Fabric. You have more time as a data engineer to focus on building reusable data pipelines. And I emphasize reusable. That's the key to getting work done quicker and having development life cycles shrink. And those data pipelines um, exist across what I would recommend to folks is a medallion architecture. It's been a concept and architecture that's been around for a while. We have the bronze, silver, and gold layers, and data flows across those different layers. That type of design is critical to use in Fabric, that architecture. The Fabric can automatically scale, keep those layers in sync. And for a data scientist, that means I can experiment directly on a well-governed production data set, ready data that's using a familiar interface to me. Most data scientists are very familiar with Python, and Fabric gives you that in PySpark notebooks. You've got integrated ML tools to deploy machine learning. You have, and you don't need to maintain separate environments. I know a lot of data scientists that I work with struggle with that. And at the business intelligence layer, you've got the tried and true Power BI, which is now part of Fabric and integrated in with Fabric. And all of these tools are embedded with Copilot. So you've got an AI interface on each one of them. This goes a long way to empowering self-service analytics. You can now have conversations with your data. There's no way that IT can build every single report that's needed to satisfy every single business user and every question they would have. It's just not possible. Copilot and AI really are tremendous in increasing that productivity and really getting us towards self-service BI, all with maintaining trust and compliance. So finally, from my own experience designing and deploying Fabric architecture at organizations like AstraZeneca and now Global Foundries, I've seen firsthand how that unification accelerates that time to insight. With that AI assistance guiding both the technical user, your data engineer, your data scientist, as well as the business user. So Fabric isn't just the consolidation of tools, it's actually an intelligence-driven ecosystem that connects people, data, and decisions at enterprise scale.
All right. Wow, Gary. Thank you so much for answering this question thoroughly and just giving us different scenarios. I really like that you made sure to say it's important to use and use reusable data pipelines. I think that really helps with the efficacy of various processes. So I appreciate you for sharing that. Now, Tom, would there be anything you would like to add to this question?
I'll pick up, thanks, Gary, on that notion of being able to reuse some of these components. I'll back up quickly and remind where we were in the Project Trident days when we saw Synapse and the ability to make dedicated SQL pools that started at about $1,500 a month each. So we had, let's say, $5,000–6,000 worth of SQL servers running. Those were auto mapped with copy data tools, a lot of the similar stuff you'd see in a copy job today where you pick tables and put them there. But those were 3 distinct databases, and we would report those out to the business with shared views and Excel connections to that, running basically data source names and embedded queries like we used to do, 20 years ago. That was still possible. Now in a Fabric workspace, I could make a view and call it Gary's report, Raj's report, and say export that to Excel. You could look at the operational data. I could say explore that in Power BI, publish it to your workspace. So in a 1-hour working session, we could put a dashboard, rather, summary from that data, and then we could have operationally in great detail at the right grain in Excel. And eventually we might want those in other surfaced in other tools. To Gary's point, multiple tools, maybe your Tableau people or your ClickSense people might want to make a query against a SQL endpoint. To them, it would look like any SQL server. While we're bringing them into the Fabric fold, they might want to continue using Tableau and Click, and there's no reason that they can't keep doing that. We could make a view and share it, but eventually I think people will see how compelling it is to take a notebook that Gary writes, T-SQL that I write, say, put in a pipeline, connect those two together and say, Gary just loaded bronze, Tom wrote a query to load silver, and we've got a team modeling data in gold that Power BI is going to read. Again, we're all doing our work, and we don't have to worry about taking it from your system and pasting it in mine or running ETL because that data is already there.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for sharing that picture and taking us back there a little bit to show how far we've come to today. For those of you that are watching, if you've got a question, go ahead and drop it in the comments. If you got questions about Microsoft Fabric AI, how it fits into your tech stack, or even how to get started, go ahead and drop them in the chat. We're going to save some time at the end for a live Q&A, and we'd love to bring your questions into the conversation. No question is too big or too small. If you're thinking it, someone else probably is too. So go ahead, get those questions in, and we'll get to as many as we can during the Q&A in just a bit. All right. So Tom and Gary, how does Microsoft Fabric AI ensure security, privacy, and governance while democratizing data success? Gary, you go first.
Yeah, that's a great question because democratizing data can only succeed if it's built on trust. So Microsoft Fabric strikes that balance by embedding enterprise-grade security and governance directly into the platform, not as an afterthought. So first, everything in Fabric sits on top of one lake. That's the single logical data lake where access is centrally governed through Microsoft Purview. So Purview adds that a lot of governance features into the Fabric stack. So this ensures that we have consistent policies for data classification, lineage, sensitivity labels, and role-based access across every workspace experience, whether you're in Power BI, data engineering, or data science. And second, Fabric's unified security model inherits from the tried and true Microsoft Entra ID. Used to be back in the days called Microsoft Active Directory. So Entra ID has embedded there the permissions, meaning for every user or every service principal that you use to access data. So it gives you that fine-grained control across every data set, every report, and every pipeline, because they all respect that same authentication and authorization control. And it's already used across the enterprise. Most enterprises use Microsoft's now Entra ID to secure access to other systems, their collaboration tools, Teams, Outlook, their device, most Windows and others. So everything's unified now with Fabric with already tried and true security model in Microsoft Azure's Entra ID. And then I'd say finally, Fabric supports that governance even with Copilot and transparency, and it has that auditability as well. Every generated insight or query still aligns with the same security boundaries and data lineage rules. And in practice, that means a data scientist or a data engineer, business user, they can safely work with the same inherited trust foundation, each with their own governed access level defined by the owners of the applications and data. And that enables collaboration without compromising compliance. So I've seen firsthand with clients that I've worked with, like Global Foundries and AstraZeneca, where the model allows to scale data and access confidently while maintaining strict control over intellectual property and sensitive data.
All right. Thank you so much, Gary. Tom?
Well, I'm gonna back up a little bit and talk about old school and how we've gotten in a new school way those security constraints in play where I think the security folks and the users both benefit. So if we look at a SQL Server on-prem, say 10 years ago, or let's see, when 2012, we built our first Azure SQL database, and that was in North Central. Microsoft complained one time they thought they might go broke if everybody built one and used it like we did for that. It was a on-prem SQL Server. We wanted to put it in Azure. Gary mentioned Azure AD, the Active Directory. You had that on-prem, and you would use Windows authentication to log into your SQL Server. So we could give that to any Excel user. That embedded query would run, and we would put it in Excel. We could put pivot tables, and they could do those. Again, 15, 20 years ago, that was doable. Then when Azure came along, we needed another way to do that. So they built Azure AD to mirror that. So you would still run it on an Exchange server and have security on-prem, and you would mirror that, maybe propagate it hourly, and the cloud could keep up. Now that emanates from Azure, right? So with Entra ID, you could have GCS connections, S3 connections, all the fabric. We could do that with managed identities. We could do that with our Entra ID. We could even have a security group with all of us in it that could be power users. All the other users would be in a different security group called Everyone, and they would have access to the general data model to do things. And then they could say, hey, Copilot, I'm looking for executive comp plans. And it would say, you don't have access to that. Or you could say, we don't have executive comp plans, or whatever. Now, by that being in one lake, if we have an ability to secure that at the file level, which we do, and tag that so that if I run it in Excel, I'll see a ribbon that says this is sensitive. You have access to it, but if you share it with someone else, they will not. If you put a memory stick in your computer, it will notice that you violated a data exfiltration policy. All these things could be running with Security Copilot. So Copilots are there to help us. They're also there to help secure in that one lake security environment. So whether we use Purview for that, or whether I think we'll see soon the Fabric Graph that would have those file-based and file secure, that we could propagate across security groups. We could have people with access or not. We could have that in a Power BI dashboard, but we couldn't export it. We couldn't share it. Maybe if we open it in Excel, even if we got it, it would open up and be blank by design. So those things could secure this. It's hard to say we have perfect security, but if we can get very close with the security team working on that side and the users only getting access to what we allow them to in production.
Yeah, and Tom, to add to that point, how many times you have these tables or Excel sheets or documents, they are duplicated over and over again, and who will
Yes.
maintain the security of this? This is a security nightmare if you don't do it centrally. And data leaks does happen. So I think it's a one data lineage and the security feature that is built in wherever the data is taken that adds additional security. Yeah, that's great.
Agreed. Good point.
Yes. Yeah, good point. Each and every one of you that have shared. And because I think with AI, there's always that fear of security, right? And privacy. And so I think each of you have kind of addressed that head on, or at least provide some possible solutions or things to think about in that regard. Raj, what challenges do businesses face when integrating AI into their data ecosystems? And how does Microsoft Fabric address these challenges?
Well, business leaders think that integrating AI is complex because of the algorithms and all the complexity it brings. It's not the case. I mean, it's complex, but it is technically enough people. It's not complex, but it's because of the data ecosystem. As Tom and Gary touched, most organizations struggle with the silos, fragmented tools, messy integrations, and unclear governance of the data. And even the best models won't work because the data is fragmented and it's untrusted and stuck in 10 different systems. Your AI is as good as your models that you built. Your models are as good as the data that you fed into the models, right? So Fabric obviously solves this by the design. Instead of gluing the tools together, it provides a single unified platform that all the data ingestions and transformation, governance, modeling, visualization, data lineage and security, they're all built into it, right? So that means a initiative doesn't get lost in integration pain. In The integration scale faster, they stay compliant and far easier to operationalize with the Fabric. Um, it's like moving from a patchwork part of singular systems to an entire engine that runs.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Anything you'd like to add, Tom?
Restate that question for me, please.
Sure. Sure. So I was asking Raj, what challenges do businesses face when integrating AI into their data ecosystems? And how does Microsoft Fabric address these challenges? And I really like what Raj said. It's, your models is as good as your data. And, it's going back to us having that clean data and
Right.
things like that, which also leads into your AI system. So I was
Agreed.
wondering if you had anything to add.
Well, I do in the sense that I've been hinting at how things have gotten quite a bit easier, right? Even to, when Gary and I were talking about 4 years ago, you get in enterprise voice, you say, we need some ways to put data in a database. And then maybe we build 10 or 12 data lakes and we have duplicate data and all this. The subject matter experts are key here. They have to tell you this data is good data. But the way we help them do that is we build what I call exception rules around that. So if you have sparsely populated data and there's a column called status, but you only have it half the time, or you have a patient ID, but you have duplicates of that patient, how do we build a model with that? We can't, right? We need to understand how we're going to validate that data is as good as we can get it. And if that means some of the data has to be left out early on until they get it up to snuff, you have to tell that business user, you've got to get a SME, you've got to use these tools and refine this data and get it to a place at the right grain where we can load it and use it in the model, or you don't get to play yet. Now, they could put it in the data lake, and where AI is very good is at mapping and creating data types and writing SQL and writing DAX. But again, if you rush into that, hey, where is my report on patients? And then I'm overstated by 50% because of duplicate records. I just gave the boss a bad number, right? I just showed him a report that he cannot rely on. And if that's our first presentation to the business, that was a real mistake on our part. We've got to be methodical, get the data quality up to snuff, use mirroring when we can. And that is a very powerful tool where the data stays in the production system and we basically send change events. We get a shortcut to a file in an S3 bucket in AWS or in Google Cloud Storage or in BigQuery or in another data source that we have. Getting these easy wins done and make sure the data is of good quality, that will be to our advantage, because if you try to do it all, you end up with people not trusting the product. Let's start with what's working, show some value early on, and maybe even in a 60-day trial where you're not paying for this Fabric software. Then if you decide I need F2, F4, F8, that's $500 or $1,000 a month. The value that adds at $1,000 a month, you've got Spark Compute, you've got SQL connections, you've got ability to share queries and write your own, put them in Excel, put them in Power BI, put them in different workspaces and govern it. All in that 60 days, you could learn that at a very nominal cost and then estimate from there, what does it cost me monthly and what do I gain by having my Tableau or my Oracle people? All this stuff is mirrored and used, and we haven't touched production yet because this becomes the enterprise data model that everybody's going to want.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. So both great answers by both you, Raj, and you, Tom. So Gary, let's come back to you. How can businesses scale their AI-powered analytics and decision-making across departments using Microsoft Fabric?
Yeah, the way I see that is that scaling your AI powered analytics across department really comes down to creating what I call a connected intelligence ecosystem. And Microsoft Fabric is actually purpose built for that. So it starts with one lake where you've got that single foundation where all the domains can contribute and consume governed data without duplication. From there,
Mhm.
Fabric unifies the entire analytics lifecycle from data engineering, data science, and business intelligence, and they all operate in the same environment with shared security and shared governance, and that's your Fabric capacities. What really accelerates that scaling is Copilot in Fabric, which really lower the barrier for every user, from a data engineer automating a pipeline design to a business leader generating insights from natural language. That combination of AI assistance and consistent governance lets organizations expand their analytics to more teams without adding any complexity. So I've seen this work at enterprise scale. For instance, I've worked in organizations where we unified multiple BI tools, a very costly situation for most IT organizations. And we did this while still growing adoption of the reporting tool in Power BI and still maintaining trust and performance. So the key to that is really standardization. Uh, you have a reusable medallion architecture, shared semantic models, and automated governance. And there's a number of tools that you could use to help get you started with automated governance. There is one that I really like that's in the Fabric GitHub site, and it's called FUAM, FUAM, Fabric Unified Admin Monitoring. Really, really helps you and every department look at where they're using data, where it's being used efficiently, where it's not being used efficiently, gives you opportunities to train and mentor others across the organization. And that single pane of glass to monitor your infrastructure. So we also have Fabric domains now, which are a way to organize your workspaces in Fabric into logical groups, like a business unit or a department. You could also have domains for product, region, any kind of data package that the organization may have, data type. So they're a key component to that scaling across departments. They're a key component for governance, for delegated administration, and the application of specific rules based on that domain or department. And you can do that by grouping workspaces together rather than having this one size fits all set of policy in it. So to me, that allows for better management of data quality, security, and other policies at that more granular level. So in a sense, Fabric doesn't just scale technology, it scales decision intelligence across these departments and across the entire business.
Wow. Once again, thank you so much, Gary, for such a comprehensive response and mentioning Fabric domains, mentioning that tool. I think you said Fawn, that's on GitHub. So I greatly appreciate you breaking that all down for us. And I believe, Tom, you may have something to add to this as well.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there, Gary, the domains, the granular control there. Once you get these built out, if you want to share a whole workspace, if you just want to share a lake house, you need to be aware of how that's done, because if you do share a workspace, you then shared that workspace with whatever is in there. If there's a lake house and you add one later, that'll become shared. So you just need to be aware of how granular you can control that and how you might want to. But things like materialized lake views, you might want to build a view, share just that view. That way somebody could pull data from your quote domain, lake house, SQL Server endpoint, and use it in something they need to do analysis for while you're working on the model and building that. I'd also add that the the thing that you need to realize, and we're building this for a client now in a greenfield, and they didn't want to use Microsoft Fabric. And so what I've been doing is building an Azure SQL database, and then an ADLS Gen 2 data lake, and then data factories to move data, and then document intelligence and AI Foundry and ML Studio. So the ability to have done that, and I'm sounding like there's a little regret here on my part. If I had insisted it was a better place to do Fabric, they might have gone along with that, but our budget was about 250 or 500 a month. So I knew that I could build it in Fabric. We're now approaching about 277. It's probably gonna end up about 350. So had we done Fabric at 250 to 500 range for F2 or F4, and I didn't have to build all that, our time to value would have been weeks earlier. So where I'm building things that have to be interconnected, we have to make accounts and app registrations and things to work. If this was in Fabric and the folks on this call were building in that workspace, I could have one, Gary could have one, Raj could have one, we could share it with you in a very easy to understand way, and even put domains and cost centers related to that. So you'd be paying for the Spark because you want it to run fast. I'm happy with serverless compute on SQL that doesn't cost very much. So one department might need the data engineers to run Spark, or they might find that it's not worth the extra money and we could scale that down. Being able to monitor it, as Gary pointed out, in a very granular way, and even cost that out to the people that are using the compute. That would have been one lake, one service, all set up when I said create Fabric capacity and make it F4 or F8. That's a pretty easy way to get started, as opposed to what I just described that we've been building for weeks, not using Fabric.
Right. All right. Thank you so much, Tom. So for the sake of time, I'm going to probably skip a couple questions here, but this next one is actually to you, Gary. With so many teams using Microsoft tools already, right? How does the integration of Microsoft Fabric AI with the pre-existing Microsoft ecosystem, 365, Power BI, Azure, Teams, enhance collaboration and workflow automation? What does that look like in action, and what is the value there?
Yeah, that's a critical component to Fabric, actually, because it's all tools developed by Microsoft working together. You can now extend Fabric to other tools in the organization and
Right.
actually use it to take actions. So if imagine you have a production data pipeline that detects some issues with the data. Maybe it looks like it might be missing some information. Maybe we missed a quarter or a month worth of data, or some of the calculations seems like they're not in sync with the current month versus previous month. Well, we can now take an action on that. We can start up a Teams conversation. We can email somebody. Um, we can kind of work with these different tools together so that we're not just putting out a report, we're actually taking an action and notifying people. We could also go the other way. From these other tools, we could trigger an action inside of Fabric. I've seen some situations where we have data that's coming in for a specialized dimensional table that we had in our data warehouse from an outside vendor, and that data came in through an email, through an Excel file, and they would email our organization once a month with this updated data. Well, rather than having somebody extract the Excel, download it, bring it into one lake and do all sorts of things, we could just do everything automatically. Off of an email, you could set a trigger that calls a Fabric API to go run a pipeline or run a notebook and ingest the data after cleansing it and transforming it right into our data lake. We could do the same thing with SharePoint. If you have vendors or partners that transfer information to maybe a SharePoint site, you could trigger a Fabric automation off of the file, the presence of the file, landing in a SharePoint folder and trigger a process to cleanse that data and ingest it into the lakehouse. And you could do the same thing with databases as well. When a row is updated in a table, you have a stored procedure that generates a Fabric pipeline. So the ecosystem of Microsoft tools across the enterprise, all, partnered and unified with Microsoft, they all work together so well. And it's really a great way to increase your productivity and drive automation through the integration of all these tools.
All right. As always, thank you so much, Gary, for such a thorough response. We are approaching our last question. Those of you who have asked your questions in the chat, we thank you. Any of you who have not yet, this is your chance to go ahead and do so. And so go ahead and drop it in the chat or leave any comments. So our last question is to the whole panel, and Raj, will go with you first. But the question is, how does Microsoft Fabric AI help businesses optimize their time to insight and reduce operational costs? Raj?
Yep. Tom touched it in detail with an example.
Right.
Yeah. Every day in delay getting these insights carries a cost, right? You have 10 different tools, 10 different integrations, 10 different data pipelines. And of course, the tools cost, but the greater cost is in integrating the tools, writing the middleware for it, integrating them at the higher end, extracting the data out of it, the meaningful data, and not duplicating it, putting security. All this adds up the cost. When you go into data operations, these are the most expensive parts that companies need to struggle with. At the end of the day, if you're looking at it, are you getting the real-time analytics on it? It's getting delayed to you as an operations leader. Fabric being a tool, of course, it comes with cost. But if you look at, instead of the lost opportunities to the cost that you are paying for it, I think the opportunities that you will get with it is that's a better return on investment than integrating different tools and putting a lot of effort at the bottom end. That's my take on it.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your insight, Raj. Tom, you go next.
What Raj is describing there is what I like to call technical debt, right? It's either continuing monthly, sometimes it was early capital expenditure. The cloud has brought the notion of OpEx instead of CapEx, so you don't buy it. But let's back up and do a quick decade fast forward. 10, 12 years ago, you call CDW, you buy an 8-core server with 32 gigs of RAM, and that's $10,000. And then you get a Windows 20, whatever that was, 2003 or 2016. But that costs so much per core. And then you had to get an infrastructure person to set that up. Then you called the DBA and you had a SQL server set up. Again, weeks before this happens, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And now we have a login for my Windows authenticated user. I log in and I start building a SQL server. But then I need storage, so we need store. But again, if we looked even a few years ago, and what I'm doing on a project right now, build a SQL database, build a data lake, build Azure Data Factory, build all the things that are going to run that you need, or create Fabric capacity. Okay. Now, the Tableau people might have never heard of Fabric, but they're going to see it like it's a SQL endpoint, right? It's going to be a kind of a long one, right? But it's going to be database.windows.net, and they're going to be able to connect to it and run a query, and they're going to like it for that reason. When they see what Fabric's doing, I think in the rest of the organization, that's going to be very compelling. But the time to value becomes almost immediate, as opposed to weeks or months and tens of thousands of dollars and all the time and technical debt that you're building along the way. Just try Fabric capacity and take a look at that, even if it's a free 60-day trial. I think the time to value will be obvious.
All right. Thank you so much, Tom. And Gary.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that I see Microsoft Fabric transforming time to insight and cost efficiency by unifying what used to be a fragmented analytics ecosystem. I've seen a lot of those over the years. And instead of stitching together multiple tools for data ingestion and transformation and visualization, all of which those tools cost money in software, licensing, support, people time is huge. The integration costs are very steep, and Fabric provides an end-to-end software as a service platform powered by that one lake with shared governance, and then you've got the co-pilot automation, so you can eliminate a lot of that stitching together. From a time to insight perspective, I see Fabric's AI-driven co-pilot as a way to accelerate everything. It can build pipelines, generate DAX, summarize dashboards in seconds. Data engineers and analysts spend a lot less time coding repetitive tasks and more time interpreting results, which is where we want them to be. That's the real people intelligence side of it. Also on the cost side, Fabric can replace overlapping infrastructure. Those ETL tools, those servers behind the ETL tools, the data warehouses, the BI servers, all with a single scalable environment in Fabric capacities that automatically optimize your compute and storage usage. And you've got that model for a true pay for what you use. You can scale, you can start at Fabric capacity, run your large workload, and then suspend it, greatly reducing costs even in Fabric itself. So I believe that consolidating analytics into Fabric can reduce that infrastructure overhead while dramatically improving the speed of insight across any of your business units like manufacturing, operations, your commercial sales, any of those different business units. So ultimately, Fabric helps organizations shift from data management to decision velocity, achieving faster, smarter outcomes at a lower total cost of ownership.
All right. Thank you to everyone for providing such thoughtful insights on our last question. Right now, we're very limited on time, but we're going to take some time to answer your questions live. We've had such a great conversation thus far, and we know there's a lot to unpack. So let's hear what's on your mind. For the panel list, I asked that we go through these quickly, kind of like a round robin, where it's like a quick answer, if you will, just for the sake of time. So let's jump into it. And then some of these, I think we kind of already answered, either directly or indirectly, but it'd be good for just like a quick summary. All right, so the first question I would like to ask you all is, how does Fabric AI stand out from a traditional data lake? Who would like to take that?
I'll take a shot at that. So
Okay.
think of a traditional data lake as a late 90s file server. So we just have folders that people create, put whatever they want there. It could be printer drivers, birthday pictures, who knows, right? It could be any number of things that were shared on what we called our shared drive, our S drive, or whatever. So a data lake could get quite cumbersome very quickly because nobody is governing where that's built, whereas if you had a project structure that had the same 10 folders and it all went in a particular place and we called it the P drive for projects, at least we could have some hierarchical storage. That's what a modern data lake, ADLS Gen 2, would be, a hierarchical data storage. And that's actually what underpins OneLake today. So to move it from cumbersome and something where you can't find anything to something that you could use compute to find, or even AI or machine learning on immediately, I think it's self-evident which one we'd like to use there.
All right. So this is an interesting question. Any idea when Fabric will be available for .gov domains? Anyone have insight on that?
We talked about that for a while back in the enterprise voice days. The government version of Fabric was always lagging behind the commercial version. I believe if it's been on the roadmap for a while, it shouldn't be too much longer. I don't have any more direct insight into that program. I'm not in enterprise voice, but
Oh, did he freeze on us?
and get your
I
answers.
think you broke up
If
a
you
little
could,
there, Gary. Go
Gary,
ahead.
if you
Yeah,
could
I heard
just say
something
the
kick in
last part.
later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. No
Just
problem.
the last part.
All
Just the
right.
last part. I was just saying.
Yeah, just the last part. We just
The
missed the
real,
last part.
yeah,
Yeah.
the real insight there, advice I could give you is work with your Microsoft account rep and have them push a bit for answers that you're seeking on government capabilities in Fabric through internal channels.
I've
Gotcha.
heard
Thank you so
rumors
much.
that might even become absorbed as part of a tenant in the Azure cloud at large. I know there's always a challenge about security and what's top secret and so forth. So, don't hold me to that, but I have heard that they're going to try to make those things all work at the same time, right? In the same time horizon. Now, how long that takes to get that done, maybe 12 to 18 months, but hopefully that's coming soon.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing. So one next question that we have here is, in Microsoft Fabric, should we need to keep AI workloads in a separate capacity to avoid interference with DE and DA tasks? And what's the best practice you all suggest for that? Anyone want to take that?
Well, I can take a shot at that. I get that. I got that question a lot when I was first starting Fabric in some of the clients that I work with. And Fabric has a very good workload management system. And it's designed to handle all those multiple workloads. And it's structured where it does it in the most capacity or CPU, memory, and network efficient way. And sometimes when we've had challenges with that workload or this workload's taken too much, we try and second guess that workload management system and we do some things manually because we think we know how to do it faster and it ends up taking longer. The only advice I would give is I would try not to second guess what that workload management is doing. Let it do its job. It's very sophisticated software. I would look at it and there's things that we could do like scheduling. If you have the AI workload that's interfering with the data engineering workload, look at the schedules of all those critical tasks. Maybe if you have both things running at 1 o'clock in the morning every day, maybe one of the key tasks can be deferred to 2 o'clock. It's still going to be done in time, ready for business users at 7 or 8 a.m. when they arrive, but they're not overlapping with each other anymore. So there's things you could do to balance it out. You can separate some of the workloads. You have a big workload, create an on-demand fabric, let it ramp up or start up, do the workload, scale down. Very cost effective, and it doesn't interfere with the data engineering, data analytics that are running in your main tenant. So there's a couple of things you could do to minimize that workload, and it's very easy for you to do it yourself.
And you might be
All right.
surprised to find that F2, F4 might be very high performance, but only for a small number of people. Concurrency becomes the problem. If you need 100 people refreshing that, maybe we have a separate capacity, to Gary's point, scale it up for ETL, scale it back down, even pause it, right? The on-demand would allow you to have it and really not pay for it except when you needed it, right? So consider those as options to not spend your whole budget all at once at the beginning of the month. Maybe save it for historical reloads or weekend work that you want to get ready for Monday, and then you could turn those back down as you needed to stay on budget.
All right. Thank you so much. So that calls for the end of our session. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get through all the questions, but I do strongly implore the panelists. We are live, streaming this on LinkedIn Live. So if you do have the opportunity to go in and check out the others who have asked questions and can answer them directly, we would greatly appreciate it. But for everyone that's here right now, this wraps up today's session. Thank you so much for joining us for Unlock Insights with Microsoft Fabric AI. We've seen how Microsoft Fabric is really changing the game, bringing data, analytics, and AI together in one powerful platform. I think that is like the major theme that was stressed through all of our panelists here today is about the one lake, one source being on a unified ecosystem. And it's helping organizations move faster, make smarter decisions, and turn information into action. On behalf of Pronix Inc. and Microsoft, thank you again for spending this time with us. Stay connected. We've got more conversations like this that are coming as we continue to explore what's next in intelligent analytics and AI-driven business solution. This event's recording, will be available on the same LinkedIn Live event page for those who missed it or wish to revisit these discussions. On behalf of Pronix Inc. and our partners at Microsoft, thank you again for being a part of today's event. Stay connected with us. We've got more to share with you guys. And thank you to our panelists, Tom, Raj, and Gary for being here. We appreciate your energy. We appreciate your responses. And we look forward to staying connected as we continue to push the future of enterprise intelligence forward together. Again, my name is Monique, and take care. And we'll see you next time. Thank you, Raj, Tom, and Gary.
Pleasure to be here.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoyed it. Talk to you
Thanks,
soon.
Monique. Thanks, everyone. Take care.